Today we will be discussing an important topic in the field of business, which is the political and legal environment.
In the global marketplace, businesses operate within the framework of the legal and political system of the countries in which they are established or operate.
These systems have a significant impact on how businesses operate, their profitability, and their long-term viability.
The political and legal environment is a complex and dynamic system that is influenced by a variety of factors, including government policies, laws and regulation, international treaties and agreements, and the actions of various stakeholders such as interest groups, consumers, and competitors.
As such, it is essential for businesses to understand the political and legal environment and how it affects their operations, as well as the potential risks and opportunities that arise from it. In this discussion, we will explore the various components of the political and legal environment and their impact on business operations.
We will also discuss and explain the different forms of political and legal setups.
Also, show how political and legal environment in the home country influences international business.
And explain the nature of political risks MNCs often have to face in the host country,
Including describing how political risk is assessed.
and explain how political risk is managed at the different stages of operation.
And lastly, describe the move towards standardization of legal issues across countries.
So, whether you are an entrepreneur, a manager, or a student of business, this topic is essential for understanding the broader context in which businesses operate.
So, let's dive in and explore the fascinating and complex world of the political and legal environment. The political and legal environment refers to the framework of laws, regulations, policies, and institutions that govern a society and impact the way businesses and individuals operate within it. It encompasses the political and legal structures, processes, and practices that shape the decision-making and behavior of individuals, organizations, and governments. The political environment refers to the political factors that influence the operations of businesses and individuals. This includes the political ideology and philosophy of the ruling government, political stability, the role of the government in the economy, political risk and instability, and the impact of interest groups and regulations. The legal environment, on the other hand, refers to the laws, regulations, and legal systems that govern business and individual behavior. This includes laws and regulations related to taxation, labor, environmental protection, intellectual property, contracts, and consumer protection. It also includes the legal processes and institutions, such as courts and dispute resolution mechanisms that enforce and interpret these laws and regulations. Both the political and legal environment are critical factors in determining the business and investment climate of country or region. A favorable political and legal environment can encourage investment, promote economic growth, and provide a stable and predictable environment for businesses to operate. On the other hand, unfavorable political and legal environment can hinder investment, discourage entrepreneurship, and lead to instability and uncertainty.
Let's discuss the political diversity and political similarity. The political scenario in a country is the outcome of the interaction between various interest groups such as individual households, politicians, and the bureaucrats. Different ideologies may exist at different levels, and the political scenario may change with changes in the dominant interest group. A particular political ideology may be found in more than one country due to the ethnic background, language, religion, and so on. The example of this is the ethnic consideration that brought Serbs of the neighboring regions into the political umbrella known as Greater Serbia. This environment is marked by both diversity and uniformity. The political scenario often varies between two extremes, democracy on the one hand and totalitarianism on the other. Democracy is a system of government in which power is vested in the people, who exercise it directly or through representatives chosen with a free and fair elections. The key features of democracy includes popular sovereignty, political equality, individual liberty, rule of law, and pluralism. There are two main forms of democracy, the parliamentary democracy and presidential democracy. In parliamentary democracy, the people elect representatives to a parliament, which then selects a prime minister as the head of government. The prime minister is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by a vote of no confidence. Example of parliamentary democracies include the United Kingdom, Canada, and India. In a presidential democracy, the people elect a president as a head of government, who is separate from the legislature. The president is responsible to the people and can be impeached by the legislature in case of a wrongdoing. Examples of presidential democracies include the United States, Brazil, and South Korea. Totalitarian system, on the other hand, is a form of government which is the state exercise total control over all aspects of society and individual life. There are two types of totalitarianism. Secular totalitarianism. This form of totalitarianism is based on a secular ideology, such as communism or fascism, and seeks to control all aspects of society through a single party or leader. Example of secular totalitarianism includes the former Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. Theocratic totalitarianism. This form of totalitarianism is based on religious ideology and seeks to control all aspects of society through religious leaders or institutions. For example of theocratic totalitarianisms includes Iran under the Islamic Republic and Saudi Arabia under the rule of royal family. In a mixed political system, there are elements of both democracy and totalitarianism. An example of a mixed political system could be China, which has elements of a market economy and political reform but remains tight control over the media and political license.
The home country perspective and the host country perspective are two viewpoints used to analyze the operations of businesses that operate internationally. The home country perspective refers to the perspective of the company's home country, or the country in which the company is headquartered. This perspective takes into account the home country's laws, regulations, culture, and economic environment when analyzing the company's international operations. The home country perspective focuses on issues such as the impact of international operations on the home country's economy, the competitive advantages that the company gains from operating internationally, and the risk associated with operating in foreign markets. The host country perspective, on the other hand, refers to the perspective of the country in which the company is operating. This perspective takes into account the host country's laws, regulations, culture, and economic environment when analyzing the company's international operations. The host country perspective focuses on issues such as the impact of company's operations on the host country's economy, the degree to which the company is complying with the host country's laws and regulations, and the benefits and drawbacks of having foreign businesses operates in the host country. Both perspectives are important for companies operating internationally. A home country perspective helps companies ensure that they are complying with the laws and regulations of their home country and that they are operating in a way that is beneficial to home country's economy. A host country perspective helps companies understand the culture, legal, and economic nuances of the countries in which they are operate, allowing them to adjust their operations to better meet the needs of those countries and to build relationships with local stakeholders. Meaning and forms of political risk. Let us first explain what political risk is. There is no precise definition. However, in Tunnel's view, political risk is said to exist when sudden and anticipated changes in political setup in the host country led to unexpected discontinuities that bring about changes in the very business environment and corporate performance. For example, if a rightist party wins election in the host country and the policy towards foreign investment turns liberal, it would create a positive impact on the operation of MNCs. On the other hand, if a left party comes to power in the host country, it will have a negative impact on the operation of MNCs. It is normally the focus of attention of transformational investors. For a long period, political risk was narrowly interpreted in terms of expropriation of assets, but for the past few decades, the coverage of political risk has come to be wider, also including risk from ethnic, racial, religious, or civil strife, political corruption, and blackmail. Zincota classifies political risk as first, ownership risk, second, operating risk, and third, transfer risk. Ownership risk exposes property and life. Operating risks include interference of the host government with the ongoing operations of the firm. Transfer risk concerns the transfer of funds either to home country or to any other country.
Stephen Kobrin classifies political risk as first, macro risk or country-specific risk, and micro risk or firm-specific risk.
The macro-political risk affecting all foreign firms in a country emerges on account of expropriation, ethnic and other strife, currency and convertibility, refusal of debt, and so on. The micro-political risk affecting a particular industry or firms emerges on account of conflict between the bona fide objectives of the host government and the operation of the MNC, or on account of corruption, which has become a way of life in many countries. Some of the forms of political risk are expropriation, currency and convertibility, credit risk, risk from ethnic, religious, or civil strife, conflict of interest, and corruption. Evaluation of political risk. Assessment of political risk is an important step before a firm moves abroad. It is because if such risks are very high, the firm would not like to operate in that country. If the risk is moderate or low, the firm will operate in that country, but with a suitable political risk management strategy. But any such strategy cannot be formulated until one assesses the magnitude of political risk. The way of assessment may be either qualitative or quantitative. Qualitative approaches involve interpersonal contact. Persons are often available who are well acquainted with the political structure of a particular country or region. They may come from within the enterprise, particularly those who are posted in that area.
Management of political risk. Primarily, as Georgie feels, there are two approaches to political risk management. While one is known as defensive approach, the other is known as integrative approach. The former aims to protect and preserve the firm's strength through reducing its dependence on a single subsidiary, borrowing from the host country's source or obtaining guarantee from the host government, minimizing the role of host country. The aim of the integrative approach is to make the foreign unit an integral part of the host country. Employment and large measures of local personnel, developing proximity with the political elite, uses of local distributors and professionals are some of the steps of the integrative approach. The experience shows that the majority of the international companies adopt a mix of the two approaches in a varying proportion. While a global firm emphasizes on the defensive approach, a multi-domestic company adopts more of an integrative approach. The political management strategy depends upon the type of risk and the degree of risk the investment carries. It also depends upon timing of the steps taken. For example, the strategy will be different if it is adopted prior to investment from the adopted during the life of the project. Again, it will be different if it is adopted after expropriation of assets.
Legal system. A country's legal system, which embraces its law and regulations, is closely related to its political system. For example, in a totalitarian political setup, the laws favor state ownership of industries. In a free political setup, on the other hand, laws tend to encourage private initiatives. Again, in free countries, laws are quite independent of political control, while they are a part of the political policy in totalitarian or semi-totalitarian regimes. In other words, political environment shapes the legal environment, and legal environment influences international business. The strategy of a firm will be different in a country with no restrictive regulations as compared to that in a country with too many restrictive regulations. On the global level, there are broadly three types of legal system. The first is known as civil law, which had originated in Rome as far back as in the 5th century BC. It is marked with a detailed set of written rules and regulations, with the result that there is seldom any interpretation of law by the court. Civil law is usually found in Central and South America, some West European countries, and some Asian and African countries. The second is known as the common law, which originated in England as back as in the 11th century. In this case, there is sample for the interpretation of law by the court. The interpretation is based on tradition and precedents, and so a particular law can be interpreted in different ways in different cases. If the interpretation is novel, it can set precedences for subsequent similar cases. In this way, this legal system is more flexible than civil law. Common law is found usually in the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Australia, Canada, and in some parts of Asia and Africa. The third is the theocratic legal system. In this case, law is based on religious teachings. The most important example of theocratic law is Islamic law, which is based on the Quran or the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. Islamic law was initially a guiding factor for ethical behavior, but subsequently, it was extended to commercial transactions. Under this law, a bank cannot demand interest on its loan, nor it can pay interest on deposits. So, it will be difficult for international banks to operate in countries adopting Islamic law. Principles of international business law. The international business law embraces the law of different countries as well as the bilateral and multilateral treaties and conventions. The principles governing international business law are as follows. First, rules of sovereignty and sovereign immunity. Second, rules related to international jurisdiction. Third, doctrine and committee. And fourth, rules related to aliens.
Wide variance in national business law and the issues of legal standardization. There are many areas where the national business law differs widely and that causes risk to the international business manager. To mention a few of them, for example, the provisions of antitrust law differs widely from one country to the other. Again, the financial law vary widely. There are cases where the majority of the assets of a company lie in one country, but a large share of the liability is related to some other country. If the law of the two countries differ, there will be a serious problem for the company while managing liquidation. Sometimes, legal issues of global importance are dealt with differently in different countries, and they have an adverse impact on international business. This is why some international or the regional agencies are trying to bring out about standardizations or uniformity with regards to such issues in respect of them. The WTO has made a move in this regard. The European too has brought about the standardizations of some legal issues among member countries. Two of the more important of these legal issues are intellectual property rights and taxation. Intellectual property is the property that is the outcome of people's intellectual talents or abilities. For example, specific design, formula, and so forth. Since this type of property helps generate income, those developing the design and formula need some sort of protection under the law so that they are able to generate income over a long period of time.
Intellectual property embraces industrial property and copyrights. Industrial property stands protected under the Paris Convention, to which around 100 countries are the signatories. It is normally protected through patents and trademarks. A patent is a sort of protection granted to the inventor of the product or the process that does not allow others to make use of such inventions. Trademark is a symbol that differentiates a product from similar products. So long as the symbol is there, the product continues to remain differentiated. Similarly, copyrights are related to the published material and they protect the publication from being copied.
Taxation is another aspect where efforts are afoot to standardize rate. International firms move to another country where, among other things, the tax rate is low. In case the tax rate is high, these firms adopt transfer pricing in order to siphon off the before-tax profit to a country where tax rate is low. Alternatively, they transfer their dividends to be received from subsidiaries to tax haven countries.
All this may be in the interest of the firm, but certainly has a negative effect on the interests of the host country government or the home country government. Sometimes, it becomes the bone of contention between the government and the firm, which has an adverse impact on foreign investment. Thus, in order to avoid these malpractices, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development has requested the government of the tax haven countries to equate the tax rate with the prevailing in the OECD countries.